just start. We're in the middle of what's been a very challenging times of adversity with the pandemic. So, David, has there ever been a time where you actually wanted to give up? And if you did want to give up, what encouraged you to keep moving forward?
Well, I just want to go back one step and say we did meet a long, long time ago when you were actually running a McDonald's restaurant. And everyone knows Michelle, but
she can't cook.
She can't cook, and
sorry, didn't do very well.
I was with a big law firm at the time, and we were doing a lot of work in, and you were running a McDonald's restaurant. You started one, and we helped you structure it. And
I don't even remember.
I know, it was a long time ago. So, look, I think we've all been through times when we felt like we should give up. This time last year, 18 months ago, when I was the president of the Cricketers Club across the road there, and I was just looking there at the building and the developments when COVID hit. And I think this is the theme of today, a little bit about the last 18 months particularly. We thought the sky was falling through on that sort of week of closure of everything. And when you have a business, and I'm sure a lot of you do have a business, and you've got a pipeline of work, and that's effectively your value or your goodwill, and you've got these targets, and you've got KPIs, and you're structuring things, and you're planning things, and you're resourcing things, and everything looks pretty rosy. And particularly for, say, the Cricketers Club, when we were sitting together and we had a full season of football, and we were starting to develop our business plan around functions and big functions, people coming in and spending $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a night for work or pleasure, and to have that taken away from you by something you can't control was just the most amazingly awful feeling for us. And it wasn't my business, but I was so rusted onto the club and the business because I'd been on the board for 20 years. It felt like it was my business, and I said to my board at the time, I think this could be the last post for us. The sky's falling in. We've got commitments. We've got bank debt. We've got a lease that we're committed to, and we've just done a big renovation. Remember when Adele came out a couple of years ago? We've done a big, massive renovation virtually at the weekend before. Finished that off, and we had a couple of $1 million in debt, and it just all looked really shit. Anyone feel like that in about March last year, where they thought their business was going to go? And we didn't know, of course. No one had heard of COVID, and no one had heard of JobKeeper. No one thought banks would defer loan repayments for 6 months. That was a shock to me. Wow, banks? Anyone from a bank here?
So uncharted territory. Obviously, we all went through that.
Yeah.
We didn't know. Blindsided. JobKeeper. Yep. Banks putting on hold. So moving, and I was at that Adele concert.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
It was very good.
Yeah.
I love it. So moving forward, though, what pushed you through? I mean, these are business owners, entrepreneurs. They want to know what were the steps you took, or what happened to make you go, we're going to keep forward, we're going to move forward, this is not going to beat us. And the Cricketers Club's doing very well now.
Had our best year. Last year was really embarrassing, actually. We had to react quickly, and I think one of the things that we talk about in business is being, quick to react and making decisive actions quickly. We reacted really quickly. We called emergency board meetings. We stood down staff that we could, obviously casuals and so forth. Suddenly the banks started playing the game, and we got onto them, and they gave us a 6-month deferral, obviously. The state government came through with that loan assistance called Q-Rider. I don't know whether anyone took advantage of that. I'm not supposed to mention the details of that. Anyone here from Q-Rider? But
we don't care anyway.
We were apparently the first business to take advantage of that assistance, and for those who didn't, we got a $250,000 loan over 10 years. First year interest free, no loan repayments. Second and third year interest only. Years 4 to 10 P&I, it's something like 2% fixed for 7 years. If you're in business, you like to have certainty, and if you know that it's only a small part of our debt, but if you know that debt is locked and it's such a friendly thing. So those sort of things came out and helped us. And the biggest thing that came out of it was the loyalty of our customers, or more so our members. March last year, our financial year ends on the 31st of March, and of course we were sending out all our subscriptions and renewals, and some of our members were paying $15,000, $20,000 for a season coming up of wines, entertainment, cricket, all that sort of thing. And of course we thought as soon as that closed down and we weren't going to have any gains at that point, we would have to give all that money back. And what stunned me and the board was the fact that a lot of people just said, you know what, we love this place, we want to be here. We already committed the 15 grand or 20 grand, keep it. We know you'll look after us when the sun comes out again. Yeah. So the amount of loyalty from your customers, you'll have customers. I'm getting tingles now that the amazing loyalty from those people, because you built it up over 20 or 30 years, you really don't know it's there until actually a crisis hits, and we were stunned. Incredible.
And the true colours always come out in times of adversity. Let's pull on that thread a little bit. So David's saying that ongoing fostering rapport, loyalty, customer relations really saw you guys through. Yep. You were able to leverage on some, obviously, state government funding.
Well, JobKeeper came through.
Incentives, financial incentives. What else have we found from this experience? And we've all got to have a silver lining and learn from it. Otherwise, we're not going to learn if we're not going to take something away from it. Peter, and did you and Warwick, do you think, what else, apart from using the right operational efficiencies, having loyalty, what are some of the other things that we all got out of the pandemic that if it didn't happen, we otherwise wouldn't have known to move our businesses forward in the future? Anyone? Ramsey? You're on the spot.
Oh man, it's like for me, it's a once in a lifetime thing, right?
Yeah.
I know it can happen now. So having a plan in place.
Yeah.
Future, if it does happen again, we know it can happen again now.
He who fails to plan, plans to fail. Brad, what do you think got the companies that survived and the companies that didn't quite survive? What do you think of the?
We haven't seen many not quite survive.
Well, that's right, yeah.
Which is a problem because that's what happens when the tax department starts to chase debts, which they won't do this side of the election. But one thing that I saw off COVID, you could create change that may have taken you years with your hands. Now, whether it was good or bad change, you had that opportunity to drive changes, whether it be changes in the operating efficiency of your business, the way you employ your people, commission packages, government funding, banks stepping up and helping, which who would have thought banks would step up and help? Yeah. But those changes, if you're smart and considered the way you implemented them in your business, they should manifestly give you a better outcome today. Which means, unfortunately, Australia's not as an organisation not gotten any productive. So the measurement of productivity gains in Australia continues to show that we're not any better producer than we used to be. We just dig more shit up and sell it. So we're not getting more productive as a whole, but hopefully through COVID, your businesses were able to look at some of the things you do and make them more productive. Lower your cost base. We've all got increased costs of new employees. It's hard to find people, your input costs, but what could you do through that period? One of our previous members runs a large printing business, and through COVID, they also had a challenge of one of the machines breaking down, but they were able to get production at about the same levels with one press they used to get with two, by the way they restructured their working environments, working through lunch hours, 24-hour shifts, etc., which they would not have gotten in the previous labour force because they weren't going to be flexible, but COVID created an environment where they could not enforce but ask for some employee flexibility. And maybe another bank that moving forward. So I don't know what you've all individually done in your businesses, but big changes like COVID no one's ever seen before. Did you create big energy and changes in your business? And if you didn't, you missed an opportunity. I hate to tell you that, but you did.
Yeah, and we've seen an increase in automation, artificial intelligence. It's all the new buzzword. That's
what
all the money
on
is.
The back there.
Ben?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to sound potentially a little bit sucky to say it in this room, but part of it was being able to come to places like Coraggio where you can sit in a room with other business owners and nobody was panicking. You're in a room with a whole bunch of business owners and none of them are panicking. Instead, what everyone was doing was sharing quality information about, there's a grant available here, there's an idea to develop this, and you go, well, should I come pick up on and use that idea as well?
Yeah, thanks, Ben. And I think the thing is with Coraggio is people don't even realise how much they have that sense of belonging and that support network until they really need it. And during a pandemic is when you realise other people had your back, you could pick up the phone, you could do monthly huddles. So they realised that, they weren't alone in the journey and they could turn on their chair, accountant, etc. So that's a good point, Ben. But David, you were about to say something as well?
I think the other thing with the survival technique was that we had a fantastic CEO and an innovative CEO. And when your business model suddenly gets flipped upside down, when we had 11 games booked and paid for and customers all ready to go, suddenly they're gone. Notwithstanding the fact that we then actually had 35 games in that season last year and a grand final, but before that actually happened in about May, the CEO started creating new products to try and, when finally people were allowed to get back into clubs and so forth at limited numbers, he was coming up with very innovative products. I'll still remember the day he rang me up and said, just had one of our best platinum members, he wants to we were allowed to get 10 in a room, I think, at the time. This guy wanted to reconnect with 9 of his best clients, and we have a fantastic facility over there, a view like this over the Gabba, and the guy said, I'm prepared to pay anything, and Lachlan said, well, we could put a lunch on it, a big tomahawk lunch, these beautiful big, they look like something out of the Flintstones, these big steaks, and premium reds, blah, 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 10 people around the table, and the guy said, fantastic, how much? And Lachlan said, $500 a head. And the bloke said, yeah, done. And the margin on that was incredible. And Lachlan's gone, shit, I should have said that. This bloke was ready to pay anything. He wanted to reconnect with his customers and he was prepared to pay. He knew he'd get a quality product. But we started flogging that as a product, and I used it about 3 times, these little intimate lunches. And I think, personally, the corporate lunch is probably going to come back for the next couple of years. It's a good way to reconnect with people. But they were sort of innovative products that our CEO was coming up with, given the circumstances we had, and it was just a treat. It really makes a lot of money.
So that's a classic example of pivoting in a way. There was no networking functions, we were social distancing, and you were able to leverage a private room, which still complied with the numbers, and offer a premium price. Are there any other examples in the room where you've hit a flat patch in your business, but because of Warwick?
Yeah, myself, we were sort of situation where we weren't really as profitable as what we would have liked to have been at COVID hit. And I remember looking at the numbers with Peter, and we had a long discussion about not giving up. So what we did was we just turned around and made that decision. It was sort of, it's either hold in or go hard. And we went hard, and we went and spoke to all of our staff and got great advice from our board, and we were able to not only sort of survive, we've actually been able to thrive during it, and that's because of the decision that we made not to let go, just go harder and pivot.
I don't think anyone in this room wouldn't go hard or go home. They had to go home to 6 kids though. Yeah. That's why you went hard. Right, Peter?
I have 7.
Anyone else got an example they want to share? Luke, you're sitting back quietly, had a haircut, I see.
Yeah, I have to be quiet.
All 3 of them. Anyone else got Ben again?
Yeah, well, I mean, called City Winery apparently had a plan just before the lockdown, a 80-head function for food and wine. And when it couldn't happen anymore, then someone came up with the bright idea of turning it into set up a video camera in the top chef brought in, set up a video camera in the kitchen and run virtual events where people could get the food delivered and they'd cook it at home and follow along with the chef, and ended up turning an 80-head deal into many 300, 400 head deals. So sort of.
Thanks, Ben. I think at the end of the day, though, it comes down to being innovative and thinking outside the square, and COVID has made us do that. But, everyone's banging on about resilience, leadership. What do you see as the key, and I'll ask the key characteristics or qualities or traits that make a leader who, in times of adversity, can lead by example and get their company from, being economically viable regardless of whatever's thrown left field at them, like a pandemic?
Yeah, well, the word I use, and I use it with my kids too, is grit. I just love that word.
Grit.
Grit. It's a bit
You gotta
dirty.
say it though. You gotta
It's a
say
bit
grit.
dirty. It's a bit sort of in the gutter, and so many kids. You've got to show some grit sometimes. You're going to get kicked, and you're going to not get what you want. You're not going to get into uni the first time or whatever, and you're not going to get that first job, and you've got to bounce back and dust yourself off. And I suppose my experience was, as a young fella, I left northern New South Wales when I finished university down in a town called Armidale, and I took the risk of coming to Brisbane, and didn't know a soul. I did not know a soul, and for some reason I thought Brisbane was a better choice than Sydney. Probably was. I could afford to live. Buy something up here. My sister and brother both went to Sydney. But it's about, I think, pushing yourself into an uncomfortable zone, and I had to do that to meet people and start networking, and I feel as though I'm pretty well networked in Brisbane now. And for a bushie from northern New South Wales who know anyone, it doesn't just fall in your lap. I didn't have the right school tie on or anything like that. Didn't go to the universities here, so. I think that applies to business as well. You've got to not run with the herd, you've got to stand out. Fear of perhaps looking like it, and take a risk. Because if you run with everyone else, everyone's just going to treat you the same. And if you can make yourself a little bit different without making yourself a fool, I think that's a characteristic that will help you succeed more than a lot of things.
So
more than brains sometimes.
Yeah. So in that networking opportunity and that engagement, having a unique value proposition like an elevator pitch, making yourself stand out from your other competitors.
Yep.
What are you going to deliver? What are you going to make different to everyone else in your space? Andrew, we were just talking about that this morning, right? Talking about a point of differentiation. Does everyone agree that these days you've got to actually be really clear about your niche, really clear about your market offering? What are you delivering? What makes your business different to someone else's? Why would they choose you over them? What gives you that edge or that sustainable, reliability that you're going to deliver? Do you think that's what's come out of COVID, that people have got really more clear about their market offering and where they want to be and where they want to go?
I did a talk the other day with Philip Devella, and he was talking about the businesses that survive are those that engage emotionally with their customer base the best.
Yep. Is that the one Alison Smith was at? No. At the coffee commune?
No.
Oh, okay. Yep.
No. And I think COVID was an opportunity to do that. Like in our industry, a third of employees in our industry got let go. Because owners just panicked, they didn't know their numbers, they didn't know what to do. So we sat our team down and we said, your job's safe. This is what we want you to do. You need to take care of you. You need to do this. You need to do that. And we took them on an emotional journey, and we did the same with our clients. We said to them, you're in safe hands with us. No matter what happens, we're going to look after you through this process. And we took it as an opportunity to really, because our strength has always been emotional connection with our clients, and we just leveraged the hell out of that. And we took it to a complete next level. And the loyalty we've got in our client base as a result is amazing. It's just gone next level.
Thanks for sharing. I'll come back to you, David. But it's interesting that in a time with digital marketing and social media platforms that we're actually coming back around to being authentic, being grassroots, being emotional, communicating, looking at the whites of the eyes. It's almost like people are starving and craving for that emotional connection, right? And Michelle, you probably get that through own marketing. And Kath, as a litigator, what are some of the reasons, your opinion in terms of businesses that have gone under or litigating each other, or businesses that have survived? Have you got anything to add to that?
I think only that people are seeking the assistance of other professionals to see how they can get around it, how they can move through it, and to take a bit of a more proactive approach. And saying that, there was also changes to insolvency and bankruptcy laws that meant that the litigation space was sort of held for a long period of time, that people didn't have the fear that they were going to be chased, and that because things were so uncertain, a lot of litigated people who wanted to be litigious were more mindful of the cost and the likely outcome going through that process. So kind of reopened channels of negotiation that have always been there, but just weren't utilised as much as they should have been. So it's created a lot more a sort of strategic view for a lot of businesses about how they're going to deal with the debt they're chasing, but also how to then not get into debt and have it.
Do you think it's generated some empathy though? Do people think, big picture, I could have died, I'm going to let it go? Do you think that's happened a bit? No, that's... Show me the money. Show me the money, Wallace, Brad.
Yeah, just one thing that was amazing, and David said a moment ago that that 1 week in March when it all happened, everyone shat themselves. What was amazing to think about in Australian business, in 3 weeks, people were on their knees because that's what kind of buffer they built. After 28 years of economic prosperity, we had an administration for 28 years, people in Australia had not, in business generally, had not created a buffer they could trade for more than 3 weeks without shitting themselves. Now, obviously the government have their Team Australia, they come in with all sorts of investment benefits that no one expected.
I mean, the stimulus packages definitely help, but once they... sorry, I thought you put your head down. Keep going, Brad.
I think as I talk, it's an amazing thing. It's worth trying. But the thing that is that what I'm looking at now, what happened in business, and to come back to your point, it's about people being fair income. We've gotten back to fair income business, authentic business. So those that actually reached out to the customers or reached out to their employees and actually were honest and told exactly what was happening, created a new platform, and that platform is authentic business practices. Now, reality is, right now it's tougher to do business than it did in the pandemic because there is not $400 billion worth of stimulus in the marketplace. There is not a guarantee your landlord will put your rent on hold for 6 months. There is not a guarantee your bankers will defer. Right now, supply chain challenges and cost input pressures and finding staff is harder than it was 12 months ago. So business challenges, but if you've got a good business that you've gone through authentic process and spoken to your customers, spoken to your staff, then you're well positioned. So the reality is, pandemic was brilliant because it actually forced us to focus back on what was important. What hasn't happened yet is the shakeout. And there will be a shakeout, which actually means all good businesses in this room will come out the other side with hopefully better forward momentum because they've got good relationships with their customers, got great relationships with their staff. The pressure on staffing, finding staff will ease a little bit. Hopefully as borders open, both internationally and locally. Supply chains hopefully normalise. All those pieces will get back. And you've got bloody great businesses because you went through this tough environment. And the way you got through, you didn't bullshit yourself, you didn't bullshit your customers, most importantly, you didn't bullshit your staff. So if you did any part of that, have a good look at yourself because you set yourself up for a failure in 6 months' time when the real world starts to come back.
John, was that a hand up or were you scratching your head?
Scratching.
Oh. Who didn't think they were going to trade through COVID? I'm talking like it's in the past tense, of course it's not. But did anyone think they were going to close the doors through COVID? Unless you're already going into receivership anyway, like Virgin would have if COVID didn't come along. Anyone? So you all thought, yep, is that a...
Well, the building industry just fell off, house building just fell off a cliff. But for us, I think that the gift from COVID was to have time. You know, if ever there was a time to reflect on business, that was it. And also, I agree with what you said about speaking to the staff and saying, well, look, if we can stretch it out, you've still got a bit of a job there, and we worked all our back of house processes. How often in business do you even get the chance to do that? But then it came back. You know, now it's boom times, crazy time. But, you know, yeah.
You can add something, David?
Yeah, with my own business as a director of a professional services firm, we obviously thought it was pretty bad too. We were worried that clients would stop using us. We were worried that would stop paying us. Back in March or April last year, in hindsight, it was actually the opposite. You know, they needed us more than anything as chartered accountants and advisors. They needed to understand the job keepers and the cash boosts and all that. We didn't understand it ourselves. It was a policy on the run by the government. So if anyone was going to try and help the client, it was us. So we started doing webinars and Zoom things for our clients and so forth. And frankly, it was about reconnecting with the client and getting in touch with them because we didn't put one staff member off in that period, and we saw the Big Four firm going to 8-day fortnights and all that sort of thing, and putting people off left, right, and centre. We actually grew our staff base during COVID, and we're still looking for about 20 people. So we did change our focus, and we did start to go back to our clients and say we're here for you, and if you need us, we did have business that would last more than 3 weeks, thankfully. So we did have a buffer if clients did stop paying us, but they kept paying us and they wanted us and they needed us, and we returned that. We got in the car when we could and we went and had coffee with them, and we did go and have lunches with them and invite them to things. And I think, you hear those theories when your business starts to shrink, you shouldn't shrink all your costs and so forth. You should take the opportunity to do things and take them to lunch and give them a cuddle. And we did that, and I've probably grown my practice in the last 18 months by percentage terms more than I have in the last 5 years. It's been quite extraordinary. And I think you put it down to, I was going to say, it's hard to distinguish professional services firms. Like, there's the Big Four and then there's the mid-tier firms. We all do the same stuff. It's pretty generic to a degree. You want an audit, I'll pick a firm and they'll do your audit. You want some tax advice, you get the tax advice, the same sort of tax advice, whatever. It's your bedside manner. And that's what makes you different.
Yeah.
It's not, I can't stand up and say my firm's better at blah, 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 blah than BDO or Green Thornton or PwC. It's just, you're bullshitting yourself. It's your personal connection with your client. And I think that's the thing you can really, as business people, that's where you can succeed, because if you're good at it, you'll be better than someone else, and you can actually.
So a lot of these people in the room may down the track starting with the end in mind, wanting to sell the business, whether it be via an acquisition, amalgamation or whatever. So if you're, by that analogy, if they're building that relationship with their clients and establishing that rapport, what advice would you give to them if they want to then sell their business so, they're not attached to the principal owner, as opposed to sort of ensuring that their employees are continuing to develop those relations with their clients?
You've probably heard that learn to let go. Leave your ego at the door and start planning for succession. And I've got clients who have got wonderful businesses, but they've got what's called personal goodwill in the business, and they're not filtering it down to their senior management staff and giving them opportunities to buy in. And those senior people, owners, should be able to, in 5 years' time, go on 6-month holiday and the business won't miss a beat. If you can't let go, you're not going to get the best price for your business, because am I going to buy your business if you're so important to the business that you're going to lose your customers when you walk away? Over the years, I've had a lot of specialist doctors as clients, and up on the terrace there, and they get to a retirement point and they think they've got this fantastic business that they can sell. And I have to give them a dose of reality. I say, Dr. Smith, your customers or your patients are there because of you. You don't have any goodwill that you can transfer effectively. It's all about you. You're a specialist, you make hay while the sun shines, but you don't really have something to sell. Change that to someone who can push the goodwill down to the other people in the business. You've really got something to sell, but you've got to plan it. You can't just do it overnight.
So if they did have to plan it, what would be the top 3 things that you'd ask them to start thinking about right now, even if they don't want to sell for another 5 years?
Me.
Yeah. No sales.
Then we'll go to lunch to get to know each other.
Which will last about 4 hours.
4 hours, and then at the end of that, we'll sign an engagement letter.
5 McDonald's franchise.
Oh, 5 McDonald's. Or 5.
5.
So what was the question?
So
What should they do?
So what would be, say, the top 3 things, advice that you would give them if they were planning on selling their business? Because at the end of the day, we're probably all going to think about selling our business, right?
Well, you've got to get a valuation to start with, and you've got to have an expectation of what you think you need as a valuation down the track, and can you gap between what you think it's worth and what it is worth. So you need a professional to come in and give you a dose of reality there. But you do then need to probably get some external advice and start going, what have I got to do to transfer all my goodwill that's attached to me? Everyone loves David O'Brien. They ring me up, blah, 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 blah. How am I going to get my staff to be the people of contact? And I've been doing this for 5 or 10 years. I came here straight from a meeting with a client and left my manager there with the new client. I said, can you do better at this than me? And they said, see you later.
Good. You can let go.
So you've got to, and it's hard. You work your life to be, reputation, and you want to be big dog in that room, and it's hard to say, you know what, I don't need to be in that meeting anymore. But if you're trying to get out and slowly do it, and you have the right people, and probably lock them in legally and maybe financially at some point. It's nothing like having a bit of skin in the game. I reckon that's half the battle.
Is Michael here? Michael, you lock equity partners. So bring the employees in, give them a bit of equity, give them a bit of, rubber hitting the road so they get bang for their buck for coming into work. Yep. Who else has done that in their businesses? They've kind of, Luke?
Yeah, so we're in the process of doing that currently. We've got 4 of my key team members buying in, taking the stake. Got a general manager that's coming on board. So this is sort of my first rodeo. So up until now, we're 11 years old and we've sort of grown the business instinctually up until now. And we've got really good systems in place. I wouldn't mind asking you, David, just some insights or tips in terms of governance.
Yeah,
so it's a new term for me.
I love this topic because it's a really good way to scare the pants off clients, and then they get their checkbook out.
Checkbook. We know how old this is when it mentions a checkbook.
Everyone knows what I mean. But, I mean, governance is part of my practice. Call a spade a shovel and take their rose-coloured glasses off. And if you're going to bring those 4 people in, you want to have a good shareholders agreement. You want them to feel as though they're not being, taken advantage of. You want them coming in as happily as you want them to come in, obviously. And they want to have transparency. They want to have board meetings or management meetings at least monthly. Quarterly is probably not enough. Maybe after it's matured. But you've got to have monthly meetings with up-to-date figures and an agenda and a structure, and you talk about topics that you don't know about, like there might be HR issues. You bring your expert in, or there might be green issues that you've got to bring someone in and say we're not doing the right thing for the environment. If those people are feeling as though they're part of it, and there is a prenup, so to speak, and if there's a dispute, you've got a dispute resolution clause, and someone wants to get out early, well, you've got a valuation mechanism that everyone's agreed to. You're not going to end up in court and spend 200 grand lawyers. Those sort of things, I call that all corporate governance. But I also call corporate governance just common sense stuff. And every now and then you sit down and you go and have a strategy half day out of the office. Or a few beers, and sometimes the truth comes out after bottles of wine.
And cultivating culture with those people, so you're all aligned and synergistic about the culture of the business, saving the world one rooftop at a time.
Yeah, so corporate governance is huge. To me, it is anyway. And we've got shareholders agreements coming out of our ears in my firm.
Brad, do you have anything to add to that around the governance space?
I think governance saves you from yourself. It really is about how do you plan for. When you come back to shareholder, it's about making sure you get clarity around what you want the end game to be. So alignment around, is there an exit strategy, and when you're looking at coming back to exit, for me, when you think about selling a business, first thing is whether it's now or in 10 years' time, who are the likely buyers? And how do I shape myself to be most attractive to and for them? Because it doesn't matter what you think the assets are, it's what the end buys. And the bigger market of buyers, you get that kind of demand marketplace. But governance, setting up good governance structures in your business and using smart external people to give you advice, and that's good because they've had the experience of doing it.
Yeah.
But David's experience would be better than trying to make it up yourself or reading on a Google site because it's first hand.
And I think if I came to your business and I knew your corporate governance was good and I was wanting to buy as an external and you had 3 new shareholders and I could probably have a chat to them, and if you then said to me, well, we've got a shareholders agreement, we have a board meeting every month, we have a strategy day every 6 months, we report to our bank quarterly. In fact, our bank manager comes to one of our quarterly meetings, he sees all the financials are up to date, all our tax portals are okay. If I'm going to buy that business, I'd be much more comfortable knowing that that's in place than if it wasn't.
It's like buying a car with all the service books, right? Having all the services done.
Yeah.
Otherwise, And a good HR person, SVP people's here, Brendan. So having good HR, having exit strategies, good employment contracts, non-competes and all the ducks in a row there. So
the beauty of a management meeting every month or quarter, and if you do have, say, an external chair, and I do this for a number of my clients, is you've got to recognise what you can't solve yourself. So you might have to go and get an HR consultant come in and you've got to know your limitations. Yeah, that's good.
Talking about the value, you were saying get your business valued right. So I've got an electrical contracting business. Where would I go, or who would I be?
Yeah, so my type of firm does valuations as a I'm not a valuations is actually more of a specialised area than it was 10 years ago. We've got a lot more controls over it now, but I do have partners who are certified to value businesses.
But is there people that value businesses and there's people that value businesses? Like, it's very...
Yeah, there's probably those business brokers out there in some places that, don't understand fully
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. I had a client come to me and said, I want to buy this business. I'll be very quick. I want to buy this business. Here's all the figures. It's come from a business broker out in the suburbs. And they've made all these... You've got to understand, when you do a set of figures, you take out some things. If you're running a Porsche through the business and you're running a holding through the business, you take that out and you normalise the profits, as an example. If you're paying rent to a property that you own and it's not commercial, another entity, you've got to put the commercial rent in. So you work all these things out, come up with a normalised profit. This guy did this valuation of this business and he normalised it all, and he came up with a profit of $100,000. And then he times it by 4, which is the P/E ratio, and he said business is worth $400,000. I'm simplifying it, but what he failed to do was that the husband and wife were working in the business 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. He hadn't actually factored in a wages content. You ever all know what I'm talking about here? Yeah. So 6 days a week, they were flogging themselves for $100,000 a year, and there was no wages cost in there. So if you had to employ 2 people to work 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, just do the numbers in your head. It's probably $200,000. Plug that into the $100,000 that he thought they were making. You're actually running at a $100,000 loss. So my client said, should I buy it? We looked at this and went, run for the hills, mate. I mean, he was going to mortgage his house. So those sort of valuations, be very careful. There are people out there who do these things and they get away with it. It's criminal.
Yeah, someone who does have some specialty in that area, that someone who never does it or certified money. Lots of account.
Yeah.
At the back.
I've seen a couple of businesses advertise as well. They have the P&L, but they didn't have any tax records.
Yeah.
No, you're quite within your rights. It doesn't do a bank, they want their tax records.
The good one is, you've got particularly a cash business that you can take some cash out from time to time. I'm not saying that's wrong, it's just how you account for it. But I've seen it many times where the turnover is $2 million and it comes with a little asterisk and says, I'm going to take $100,000 cash and no one sees it. So you've got to add that $100,000 onto the $2 million. And we go to our client who's potentially buying the business and say, no, if it's not on the financials, it's not happening. Can't have your cake and eat it. So, mind you, I've had clients do it the other way too. They said, when I'm selling this business, making for the client, do take all this cash out, so mate, you can't do it.
We're just going to edit that bit out of the video. That's going to the...
I told them that they couldn't do it.
We have a couple of minutes to have a couple of more questions before we break for lunch. Ben, again, third time lucky.
Yeah, third time. So just, I don't know if you're saying that they're buying in or that you're just giving them as sort of like an extra equity, but I've seen things go wrong if they haven't. They've got to pay something. It's got to mean something to get in. Otherwise, it's too easy to jump out again.
They're buying in.
Yeah, fine.
Thanks, Ben. Anyone? Any questions for David? The other Ben?
Just on one topic, I was just going to say, I think from getting prepared for sale as well as having documented
business plans and strategy, what's going to happen in the next 12, 24, 48 months, along with forecasts and things like that. So if someone buying the business, what it's going to do. So I think it's really important. So as a future plan as opposed to...
I totally agree. And that'll be part of your monthly or quarterly meetings. You know, what are our forecasts? What are our opportunities going forward? What's our cash flow? What are the pressure points? When do we have to pay some tax? Cash flow? All those sort of things. That's your strategy day.
Yeah.
Or half day.
Just one point, there's been a little bit of discussion around bringing equity partners into your business. Just really understand what it feels like to have a minority shareholder in an organisation and what you do with regard to if someone's want to buy your business. Is it just your decision? Is it a thing called drag along and tag along, meaning if you like the offer, well, they have to follow it. So get the right advice on that because there are very strong rules that protect minority shareholders, but what's your decision-making process? You have the right as the majority shareholder to make certain decisions based on the majority. Just think those things through because it can get very complex when you bring minority shareholders into a business. And if you think I've got more than 50, I can do whatever I want, well, that isn't always the case. Just make sure you get the right advice on that. Not setting up just to get business for Dave, but...
Yeah. Thanks, Brad. Oh, John?
Yeah, I'd just like to come back to where we were earlier in the presentation. We were talking about COVID, the implications of it. And congratulations to everyone here on the succession. But I'd also caution you in the coming months going forward. Borders are going to come down. You're going to see something equivalent to a flu epidemic come through your businesses, one form or another, in the way of the level of illness and sickness and disruption. And I'd say to you, how are you managing that, or how are you preparing for that? So having a shortage in workforce, staff off, being able to have shifts of people. That's the next issue that you're going to have to manage through. You manage through this stage. New South Wales, Victoria, you can see what's happening in New South Wales, high levels of hospitalisation, high levels of illness, people absent from work, that style of thing. That way it will come into Queensland. Start to think about how you manage it, what's the cash reserves you need, and how also at the same time you're going to build a level of confidence within your staff and your customers, maintain the level of business transaction that you're currently doing and confidence in engaging with you. It hasn't gone. We've been very successful and lucky. That's because we've prepared for it going forward.
Do we think it's a good thing, John, moving into sort of that, Melbourne Cup to Australia Day silly season period, to actually be opening the borders and getting ready for stage 2 post-COVID, if you like, in terms of all the things you've just mentioned for this staff? I mean, they typically take annual leave.
The longer they stay closed, the greater the number of vaccinated in Queensland, but they will still get sick. The chance of going into ICU is a lot less, and the possibility of death. They will still get sick. They will still have contagious illness moving through your workplace. And what we don't understand is what impact that will have on the capacity of the staff to work. Is it going to be the same as the flu? Come in with a cough, go home, work from home. That's what we need to be. You need to plan for it and consider those implications.
How do you plan for that, though?
Hybrid working models.
Hybrid what?
Hybrid working.
You can redesign your work.
With the hygiene factors you've got.
Yep. So you come in Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you come in Tuesday, Thursday, share parking, Warwick?
Last time we had lockdown, I had to break out my interaction with all of my admin staff and my guys are actually bubbles. So I actually started an internal bubble system within my company because we do have COVID hotels and things. Sometimes we go to those, and I can't afford one of the guys just to come pick up a piece of gear and infect my entire company. Now, I jump the gun a little bit, but I do think it's a reality. And another thing that I've thought of doing is actually pivoting our type of work to something that is more, because we are still a necessary service in the plumbing game. We've actually looked at some of the work that will probably be most affected and started gearing up towards some of the things that won't be able to be affected. So that will then leverage my cash boost, and that's how I'm going to position myself in the market over the next coming months, so that when it does happen, not if it happens, when it happens, we've got the gear to do it. That's the sort of thought process you need to start thinking about.
So think about all these conversations, the pivoting, the thinking, outside the square, being lateral, how, you know, preparing yourself for sale, like starting with the end in mind. All these conversations, all these thought processes probably wouldn't have happened if we didn't have the pandemic, right? It would have just been business as usual. So I think, you know, if there's ever a silver lining, you know, there certainly has been some silver lining in going through a pandemic and making your businesses sustainable, future-proof, resilient, and making yourself think about your life and what's important in your life and how you want to spend your time. Do you really want to grow a business and scale just to give other people a job and then take on the headaches? Are you happy with the profit margin? I think it's just made everyone kind of go into a point of reflection.